You know how some words just feel heavy, like they carry a real weight of negativity?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about pernicious, and that's exactly what we're digging into today. We
Yeah.
want to really understand what it means, especially when we're talking about, well, those tricky things we call habits.
Absolutely. And it's good we're doing this because it's one of those words that it sounds bad, but pinning down why it's so bad, especially with habits, is key.
Right. And we've got some great stuff to look at. Dictionaries, of course, Merriam-Webster, Oxford, Cambridge, Collins, the Free Dictionary.
The usual suspects for
Yeah.
definitions, yeah.
Yeah.
But also stuff on how habits actually form. We've got NIH News and Health, some insights from Counseling Connection, James Clear's work.
Oh, and Psychology Today, right.
Yeah.
On why familiar things feel good.
Exactly. Plus a personal blog looking at the unseen consequences, which sounds ominous.
It does. And even a Reddit thread on hypervigilance, which might seem niche, but I think ties in.
Definitely. So it's a pretty broad look.
Okay, so our aim isn't just, reading definitions aloud. We want to get under the skin of this word, pernicious, and really grasp how these kinds of deeply damaging, often hidden habits take root and affect us.
Spot on. It's about understanding that harmful, often subtle nature.
So with a word that feels so strong, where do we start? The dictionary seems obvious, I guess.
Yeah, let's ground ourselves there first. The Free Dictionary, for instance, it doesn't pull any punches. It says, tending to cause death or serious injury, deadly.
Whoa. Okay, so right off the bat, it's serious.
Very serious. And also causing great harm, destructive.
Mhm.
And the origin is interesting, too. The Latin, perniciosus.
Right, from pernicious meaning destruction.
No, next,
Mhm.
So the roots are intense. It even had older meanings like evil or wicked.
Evil and wicked. That adds another layer, doesn't it? It's not just bad luck. It's almost like there's intent behind the harm, even if it's just the habit itself.
Kind of. It suggests a sort of moral weight to the damage it causes. These aren't just, oops, I did it again things. They're fundamentally degrading.
That's striking. So, not minor. Merriam-Webster, what do they add?
They define it as very harmful or destructive, but they add this crucial bit, often in a subtle or gradual way.
Ah, subtle and gradual. That feels very relevant for habits.
Exactly. And their example sentence is interesting. More pernicious still has been the acceptance of the author's controversial ideas by the general public. See, it's not physical harm there, but damaging influence spreading slowly.
Right, like an idea seeping in and causing problems over time.
Right.
Okay, Cambridge, Oxford, Collins, similar vibe.
Pretty much. Cambridge is concise, having a very harmful effect. Oxford focuses on the harmful, destructive qualities. Collins brings back that stronger sense again, wicked or malicious, alongside causing grave harm, deadly.
Okay, so the common threads are definitely harm, destruction,
Take time.
but also this element of being hidden or gradual or subtle, which Merriam-Webster highlighted. And maybe that older wicked sense hints at something deeper.
I think so. That hidden or gradual aspect is key for pernicious habits. They creep up on you. And maybe that wicked part speaks to how they can corrode our well-being, our potential, almost from the inside out.
Yeah, okay. So this isn't just a bad habit like biting your nails, maybe. Unless biting your nails leads to some serious unseen infection. I don't know.
Well, maybe. But generally, pernicious implies a deeper level of damage, something fundamentally undermining.
It's that sneaky, under-the-radar quality.
Precisely. And that's the link to habits. They're often disguised. Not the big, obvious problems necessarily.
Disguised how, though?
Right.
Like, we know smoking is bad, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't feel disguised.
True, for some things. But think about those Merriam-Webster contexts. Again, pernicious influence, effects, myths, trends. Even calling ourselves the villain. It applies to so many things. Abstract ideas, subtle shifts, not just obvious physical actions.
Okay.
Now think about habits that feel comfortable, familiar, like a cozy blanket you reach for without thinking.
Ah, okay, I see where you're going. Like, endlessly scrolling social media, it feels like relaxing, zoning out.
Right. A familiar comfort.
But actually, it could be perniciously damaging my attention span, my mood, my comparison tendencies. All subtly, gradually.
Exactly that. And Psychology Today touches on why we even like that familiarity. Evolutionarily, unfamiliar things could be threats, right?
Sure. Stick with what you know.
So repeated exposure to something, as long as it's not actively bad, makes it feel safe, preferable even. It's baked into us.
But then there's that Goldilocks principle they mentioned.
Right. Familiarity breeds liking, but only up to a point. Too much, and it can decrease.
So how does that fit with harmful habits becoming comfortable?
Well, it suggests that even if the liking theoretically peaks and dips, the comfort of the routine, the sheer ingrained nature of it can keep it going. We get so used to it, even if it's subtly bad for us, that it just becomes background noise. The harm fades from view.
That makes me think of that Reddit discussion on hypervigilance. People talked about things like constant negative self-talk or scanning rooms.
Yeah, things often learned from trauma.
Right. And they might feel like protective strategies, ways to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
But the discussion really highlighted how actually they're incredibly damaging, pernicious, you could say, to their mental health, their self-worth.
That's a perfect example. A coping mechanism turned pernicious. It feels familiar, necessary even, but it's actively eroding their well-being from the inside, operating on autopilot almost.
Okay, so pernicious equals deep, often gradual, maybe hidden harm, and habits, especially familiar ones, can easily become vehicles for that harm. How does the science explain how they get such a grip on us?
This is where the NIH news and health piece is really helpful. It talks about how habits, good or bad, form through repetition. They become automatic.
Frees up brain space, right? Like driving.
Exactly. Our brain likes efficiency. Dr. Volkow mentions that. But the key is the reward system. Enjoyable things trigger dopamine.
Ah, dopamine. The usual suspect in habit formation.
Well, yes. Dr. Poldrack points out the brain mechanisms are basically the same whether the habit helps or harms us. But here's the crucial part for pernicious, pleasure-based habits.
Okay.
That dopamine doesn't just feel good, it reinforces the pathway. It strengthens the habit loop and creates cravings.
So even if the thing stops feeling that good later on.
Precisely. Poldrack explains this really well. Dopamine strengthens the urge, the habit itself. So you might crave something, like a drug he mentions, even if it doesn't give you the same pleasure anymore. The habit itself is driving the bus.
Wow. Okay.
Dr. Volkow calls these routines hardwired. They get deeply embedded.
So that initial comfort or mild pleasure gets hijacked by the dopamine loop, locking the habit in even when it's mostly causing harm. That's pernicious.
It is. And the Counseling Connection article digs into that loop structure.
Yeah.
Duhigg's cue routine reward, or James Clear's version, cue craving response reward.
Right. The trigger, the action, the payoff.
Exactly. And they mentioned the brain parts involve the basal ganglia, kind of the autopilot center, and the dorsolateral striatum, or DLS, which sort of chunks the behavior, makes it automatic. Less thinking required.
Which makes it harder to consciously stop, like that story about Dr. Bauer driving to the gym.
Yeah. Even though she'd consciously decided not to go, the habit was so ingrained, the car practically drove itself there. It shows how powerful that automatic pilot can be.
And environmental cues play a big role too, right? The Counseling Connection mentions that.
Huge role. Our brains link actions to places, times, feelings. Go back to that place, feel that feeling, boom, the habit gets triggered.
Like James Clear's 5 triggers. Time, location.
Yeah.
What else?
Preceding event, emotional state, and other people. Any of those can be the cue for a pernicious habit without us even realizing it. Like the NIH article mentioning boredom and emotional state triggering excessive social media scrolling.
Okay, wow. So just to pull this together, pernicious means deeply harmful, often subtly or gradually. Habits become pernicious when they get locked in, often disguised as comfort, fueled by dopamine loops that keep going even when the reward fades, and triggered automatically by cues we might not even be aware of.
That's a great summary. The word's meaning and the science of habits really illuminate each other.
It really does. It's not just about willpower. It's about these deeply ingrained brain processes. So what are the actual consequences then? That blog post you mentioned, the unseen consequences.
Yeah, that painted a pretty stark picture of where these seemingly small, bad habits can lead over time. It's not just minor stuff.
Like what?
Well, things like premature aging skin, brain health, even increased dementia risks.
Seriously?
Yeah.
From bad habits?
That's what the post suggests, yeah. Also, decreased mental health, more risk of depression, anxiety, insomnia, substance issues, negative emotions like anger, frustration getting amplified.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Reduced motivation and energy, often linked back to habits like poor diet or lack of exercise, may be fueled by smoking or other habits. Lifestyle changes where the habit takes over, responsibilities get ignored.
Dependence, basically.
Right. And then the big health hitters. Increased risk of stroke, cancer, heart disease, COPD, liver problems, pancreatitis, obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, even reduced life expectancy overall.
Jeez. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And those are the unseen consequences.
That's the idea. They build up over time. The pernicious habit works away quietly, destructively, and you might not see the full extent of the damage until it's really significant. That's the insidious part we talked about earlier.
So wrapping this up then, the key takeaway really is that pernicious habits aren't just inconvenient or slightly unhealthy. They are fundamentally destructive, often in ways that aren't immediately obvious.
Exactly. They work subtly, leveraging our brain's own habit-forming machinery against our well-being. Even things that feel familiar or comforting can hide that damaging potential.
It definitely makes you think differently about those little routines we all have.
It really does. And maybe that leads to a final thought for everyone listening.
Go for it.
Think about a habit in your own life, something familiar, maybe even something you reach for when stressed or bored. Now, filtering it through this lens of pernicious, that deep, subtle, cumulative harm, could it be having a more damaging effect than you realize? And maybe the first step isn't even about changing it right away, but just what's one small thing you could do to become more aware of its actual impact? Just notice it more consciously.
That's a really practical, non-judgmental way to think about it. Just building awareness first. Some really good food for thought there.
Hopefully.
Definitely. And if this has sparked your interest, folks, do check out some of the resources we mentioned. NIH, James Clear, Psychology. Today they offer a lot more insight into how these habits work and maybe how to start shifting them. Thanks for digging deep with us today.